Tom, how you doing? Not the smartest guys in the room. I'm just thinking about how nice it is out. Is it nice up in where you at? New York? You're in New York.
Yeah, I'm in New York. You know where I'm at. What do you mean?
Well, sometimes I think you're in Connecticut, but then you call yourself a New Yorker. So
Just to be clear, I don't call myself a New Yorker. I am a New Yorker. And I'm in the Hudson Valley in New York. I'm in kind of the southern part of New York State. So like there's been long contention. When I worked in television, I worked in New York City, right? Primarily, I was based out of New York City, and I traveled all over the world, as we've talked about before. I was incredibly fortunate to have those kinds of opportunities in that career. But I traveled all over the world, but was always based out of New York City, out of Manhattan, and I commuted in and out. I always lived just north of the city. There was always a kind of pointed debate or a bone of contention between myself and people who grew up in Manhattan in particular about whether or not where I lived was considered quote unquote upstate, right? And my argument was, at the time, I lived in Westchester County, which is the first county north of New York City, right? So like there's the island of Manhattan, and then when you go north off the island of Manhattan, you go into the Bronx, which is part of New York City. It's one of the 5 boroughs. And then out of the Bronx, as you go north, the first county you go into out of New York City is Westchester County, right? And that's the county I lived in. And I lived right about in the middle of Westchester County. I didn't live like all the way up in the northern end of it anyway. And my contention was, you can't possibly call the first county you cross into out of New York City upstate. That's ludicrous. Upstate, to me, starts kind of north of Albany, right? So north of the state capital. But because you could literally get in a car from where I lived and drive 5 hours straight north and still be in New York State. And I was like, if that's the case, like before you get to the Canadian border, like if that's the case, like you can't say that I live in upstate New York. Like the Canadian border is upstate New York.
So,
right?
Okay, so upstate. So for the New York Cityers, the upstate is not a cool thing. Is that what's going on?
Well, yeah, it was definitely a way for them to sort of like talk down or give me grief about not being a Manhattanite or somebody who lived in the 5 boroughs in New York City. It's this sort of like, if you've ever heard the term bridge and tunnel,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, they're a bridge and tunneler, right? Which means that basically like, oh, well, they don't live here. They just commute in and out. They come and go, right? So they're a visitor. They're not really like actually a New Yorker. The flip side of that is my family has strong ties in New York. My father's family has been in New York for about 150 years. And if you read histories of the Bronx in particular, you'll find my family mentioned. So like there is a strong history in New York, and I feel very comfortable calling myself a New Yorker by virtue of that. So that's. But I live in the Hudson Valley of New York now, right? So I live about 60 miles north of Midtown Manhattan.
Okay, and I like this bridge and tunnel. That's an interesting phrase to me. I like it. So I've learned something. So, and then when you say about moving county over, I live the next county over from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's in Allegheny County. I live in Westmoreland County. So I can hop on the Parkway, which me and you did, and we were there in 44 minutes in downtown Pittsburgh. And I would consider myself a Pittsburgher, but also, a Pennsylvanian, or, I don't have any, but I don't live in Pittsburgh. So for some people, I consider it more if I was talking to somebody from outside of the area. I'm from Pittsburgh. So if you focus it more down into where I live, I live east of the city or something like that. Hey, Tom, let's get to it. Today, enough of my Pittsburgh talk, and I won't tell you about the sun here. Lois, Howard, what's going on here? Today, per Tom, we are going to talk about clickbait. So that's the route we're going down. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Clickbait versus story. Tom, what you want to lead us into this, since it was your thought?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously I've got some ideas on this. This is something that comes up a lot. If I'm not looking up at the screen, by the way, for anybody watching the live stream, I'm just inviting some people into the clubhouse room today to come hang out with us, but and be a part of this conversation. But yeah, I mean, I think there's clickbait is and always has been for me sort of like the shortcut, right? It's the short, fast route to getting somewhere. It's the quick way to do something. And really what it's the quick way to do is it's the quick way to boost your sort of metrics on social media in terms of engagement, right? And what I'm really talking about when I talk about engagement in this context is likes, right? Click through, things like that. Really the sort of like the lowest, kind of lightest, easiest form of engagement that you find on social media. And the reason why I think a lot of people engage in clickbait, especially sort of on the entrepreneurial level and on the personal level, is because it gives us a quick endorphin bump, right? Like you get that endorphin, that thrill of like opening up your social media app of choice and seeing that you had X number of likes or views, right? It's really views and likes are the ones that are I'm talking about here. But like you had X number of views or X number of likes on a post, and you get that little endorphin bump, like ooh, I like it. This is exciting, right? So clickbait, I think, and we all know what clickbait is. I think if we need to define it later on in the conversation, we absolutely can. But the thing is that clickbait drives that kind of like first tier, right, of engagement, right? Those likes and those views, right? But what it doesn't do is build engagement over time, right? And build relationships over time. So if you're sharing content and you're just focusing on clickbait headlines for your content, right? You're going to get more views than if you don't focus on clickbait headlines. You're going to get more sort of initial attention, but then you're going to see that attention crater off the other side, right? So you might get some follows, but overall, what you'll see long term is that the follows, like your number of followers is high, while your overall engagement, people actually commenting and sharing your posts, is relatively low, right? And what you ultimately want long term is high engagement, right? Especially shares and comments, right? Specifically talking about social media, you want high engagement in shares and comments, and you shouldn't really care too much about views and likes, right? Particularly views, because views are a total junk metric designed to like encourage people to post more and spend more time on an app to get more views, when really a view in a lot of cases on social media could just be a couple of seconds, right? Like 2.5 seconds. I could look up all the, I don't remember off the top of my head what all the delineations are for the different platforms, but like I think one of them is like if somebody watches 2.5 seconds of a video, it counts as a view, right? And that doesn't count as a view in my mind, right? Or in reality, like you wouldn't say that you watched something if you only watched 2.5 seconds of it. So yeah, so I think clickbait is great if you want a shortcut to more views and maybe some more likes and maybe a follower bump. But if you actually want to impact people, if you actually want to develop relationships, if you actually want engagement, right, with your brand or your business, then storytelling is the way to go.
Beautiful, Tom. Nice rundown on that. So let's hear from our friends. We got Lois, Leslie, Stephanie here. So Lois, and we have somebody on LinkedIn that said hello. Let's see who says hello. Professor Nicoletta. Okay, Lois, clickbait, storytelling. Where do you fall on this subject?
Well, I almost never do clickbait rooms because it does, like Tom said, it doesn't really build the audience that you need for staying power, right? So my way of doing things is always by storytelling. We do our own personal stories in Ever Mindful House here in Clubhouse because it brings connection to people, and there's somebody that you can relate to or has had a story similar to that, or you've made a connection now, and that's when they'll come back over and over again. But that takes time. It takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes passion, and it takes, something, stick to itness, I think, is what it really takes, because in order to build that foundation, you've got to put your own skin in the game, right? Sometimes it's money, and sometimes your time is money. And when you're putting as much time into something, you're going to build the audience that you'll attract to and build your base of following. Clickbait's great for quick engagement, like you said, but I don't personally use it unless I want to joke about something or have a fun room and see whoever I can get in. But for my regular content, I don't do any of that.
Lois, spot on. And I nobody in this room, at least me and Tom, are not endorsing clickbait.
Oh, no,
no,
I know.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just
yeah,
wanted
yeah.
my take on it. Yep.
No, we did. Yeah, I just want to make clear that.
No, I'm clear on that.
Yeah. Okay, good. No, appreciate you. So, Lois, as you build communities, I know you have a lot of followers and people that love Lois. How do you handle when somebody comes to you and says, Lois, I started something and I only have 2 people that follow me. I only have 3 people, 10. What do I do? And they're depressed because they see the success that you're having and they don't know how to even start. What do you do?
What I say to everybody when I talk to them about first coming into Clubhouse. When I came into Clubhouse, I had 0 followers. Okay. It was during COVID. I opened a room. I sat there by myself sometimes doing sound healing. And what I thought, well, you know what? If for nothing else, I'm going to be doing sound healing for myself, and it's practice for me, right? That was 3.5 years ago. Like, I have worked a full-time job this whole time. I have done Clubhouse this whole time. I've made connections you've got to build it brick by brick. There isn't a fast track way that really is lasting staying power. Unless you get extremely lucky and you're like Willy Wonka and hit the golden ticket. But even that, right? His intentions had to be good. He had to have the right purpose. Things had to align for him. And then all of a sudden, he wins the whole thing. So that isn't really most people's reality, but you got to put the time and effort into any project that you're doing if you're passionate enough about it succeeding.
Lois, the first time somebody's used a Willy Wonka analogy on here, and that was really well done. And it is interesting. If you build it, they will come. They put in the work. They were ready for the moment, and then they deliver. So I am a big believer in, like, each of us working on our craft, getting better. Whether it's a podcast, whether it's your business, whether it's your messaging, you improve daily. Stack those wins. And then someday that opportunity comes. It will never come. I am sorry to say this. I don't believe if you're sitting on the couch, if you're doing nothing, that the opportunity is going to come. But if you're out in the world, you've worked on your craft, you're making new relationships, all of a sudden I'm in Ever Mindfulness with Lois and I tell a good story, and maybe one of Lois's famous friends says, that guy, I like him. I'm going to give him a chance. And that's networking, being ready for the moment, and all of that. Tom, what say you, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, I think at the end of the day, it's just super important to stay focused on kind of what your goals are and what's going to actually get you there. And I sort of agree. I think, like, sometimes when Lois was talking about before about, like, sometimes she'll post something or share something that is, like, I guess maybe technically falls into clickbait because it's funny or it's lighthearted or whatever. Like, I think that's totally okay, right? Like, it's totally okay to, like, post a funny meme, right? Like, it's totally okay to post like a funny cartoon, right? Or a joke, like a setup punchline kind of joke, right? Like, those things are all totally okay. I'm not saying don't do that, right? And I think I'm glad Lois brought that up because I think that's an important distinction to make. Like, personally for me, I don't want to speak for you, but, like, for me, what I'm saying is don't rely on clickbait to accomplish sort of long-term goals, right, for connection and building community, because it won't work, right? If you want to share a joke, right? If you want to share something funny, right? If you want to share a meme. Like, I'm not saying don't do that. What I'm saying is it won't work for long-term growth. Like, it won't work for building a community around your brand. If you're a business, it's not a good way forward. Tell stories first, right? Sure, share something funny too, but like, tell stories. But yeah, but I wanted to mention that, going back to what Lois talked about posting something funny, or posting something like a joke or a meme or whatever. Because I totally think that's okay. I post that kind of stuff, right? Like, that's totally fine. Just don't rely on it for long-term community building, because it's going to fail you, and then you're just going to be disappointed, going, where did I go wrong? Spent all this time. Where did everybody go? How come no one's here?
Right. And if those memes and things like that are on message, let's say Tom posts one about production, or Leslie posts one about eating unhealthy or healthy, and now all this, I get it. Like, if I might post a dog that's like, my favorite meme is one. Well, there's a battery that says be positive. It's a positive and negative, and the one says, it says be positive, and the other end of it says no. And then there's a dog in a mirror that says, today is the day I'm going to get my tail. And for me, those are simple, silly memes, but on message with, hey, every day I go out and I try to make people smile, share inspiration, make them feel a little better. So, hey, why is this guy posting dogs with pictures? Okay, well, the reason is because I think it's on brand. I mean, is it? But here's what I hate, and let's get into here's where I see people fail. And Leslie, we're coming to you next, so get ready. Where I see people fail is, let's say Tom's this handsome guy, super handsome guy, right? We all love Tom. All of a sudden, I see super handsome people, or super charismatic people, or people that wear really high heels. All of a sudden, they post based on these things that have nothing to do with their brand. And then so quick, people look, wow, that's Tom, and he looks great. I'm going to like it. Or those are really nice looking heels. Those are the red bottoms. I really like that picture. People get 1,000 views on that, and then they go back and post something about their business content, and they wonder, well, the people they enticed were looking for something different. So now when they post a message about their brand or their podcast or their book, people are like, wait a minute, I was expecting to see high heels, and now I'm seeing wellness books and things like that. So they are off brand, off message. And ultimately, I think that clickbait hurt them, but they fall in love with the views. And then now it's a conundrum that they're in. Well, I got more views when I do this, so how do I do a little bit of this and a little bit of this? That is hurting you every time. It is not growing your brand. But we can fall in love with the views. So that's my thoughts on that. My rant. All right, Leslie, Keep It Dirty podcast. What do you think about the subject?
Hey guys, how are you doing? It's good to see everybody. And I just wanted to share, Lois, you were the first club that I joined 3 years ago. It was like food for the heart and the soul. I was in the midst of my mother going through strokes, and then she passed. And I always knew that I could jump on your clubhouse and just chat, laugh, listen to really cool music, very nostalgic of when I was a little girl. So thank you for that. And clickbait, you're going to laugh. I just had to Google it because I've heard of it, but we are people here on stage that are real passionate about what we do and attract true people. And I think we're really savvy now after me growing and evolving on social media over the last couple of years, to just stay away from those people and really do your diligence to look into the way they're branding themselves. Are they always constantly every couple of months switching and swapping into another uniform of this persona? So I love this conversation, and it's been a while that I've been up on stage, but thanks for having me.
Thank you for stopping by. All good points. And I'll challenge everybody in this room. I bet if you look in your DMs on LinkedIn right now, you will find your, sorry to say this, I'll bet you find your inbox flooded with clickbait. People, I just want to learn about your business. I have, where their intentions are different than the message they are leading with. And to me, it's just a different form of clickbait. Tom?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I think to me, like from a marketing perspective, from a communications perspective, right? Because again, like I always say, I'm not a marketer, I'm a communications expert, right? From a communications perspective, it feels when businesses and brands employ clickbait, it really kind of feels like sleazy sales to me a little bit. And it also reminds me of like click funnels, right? Which are something that I'm not a big fan of, because ultimately they're designed to lead somebody down a path towards purchase, without really determining if the person actually, like, by overcoming any sort of hesitancy, rather than like fully presenting things up front, saying, here's the solution if this applies to you. It sort of takes people on a quote unquote journey that I feel is, like, in a lot of cases kind of disingenuous. And that's where I sort of run into a problem with it, is that, like, if you're using clickbait, and like, sort of clickbait headlines and articles and things like that, and content online to sort of build your brand or build a following for your brand, then I feel like you're being a little bit disingenuous. And similarly, I feel like a lot of businesses are pretty disingenuous in their sales tactics when they employ in their employment of things like ClickFunnels, right? And so that's where I really run into an issue with it, is that sort of that issue of disingenuousness, that, like, I think overall, and I'm not alone in this, right? Like, this is backed up by evidence that in the long run, businesses that are transparent and authentic fare better than businesses that are inauthentic, and obfuscate their sales and their profitability and things like that. So, I don't know. That's where I kind of land on it, is that I just think that at the end of the day, you just should be honest with people. I don't think that doesn't feel like a revolutionary perspective, right? It seems like that should be the norm, but it's not.
Well, seems fair, Tom. I have this from like a lot of years of sales training, and I think the thing that it boils down to for me is, if they like you, they trust you, they buy from you. They, like, if you're in a sale, it's these basic premise, like, they like you, they trust you. So if you're breaking any of these things, well, if you show up and you're an idiot, if you act like a jerk, they're not going to like you. If you don't know your product, if you lead with, like, I almost want to have a conversation with this one guy on LinkedIn that sent me a message, and I replied, and it was a clickbait-ish, but I have an uncle that's a 50-year golf pro. This gentleman had golf in his bio and was telling that he was in golf-related field. I replied, interesting. My uncle's a 50-year pro. Okay. Maybe that isn't that interesting, but I would think to somebody in the golf field that is reaching out to me, my rebuttal, I was like, hey, again, no, the response blew right through it, and it was an obvious, like, must be like the filter, send this, get response, send this back, get response, get this back. And for me, I didn't want to respond in the first place because I had a feeling it was clickbaitish, and I did respond, because I'm like, this, I want to talk about my uncle, whatever. And so, nope. And so now I'm like frustrated with it because I've got like level 2 and level 3 hit back. Hey, do you still want to talk? No, I didn't want to talk in the first place. So you reached out to me, So that's where I'm at with it. Tom, let's get into storytelling with this subject a little bit. But first, I think we should thank everybody who joined us. Hey, on Juneteenth, emancipation and extra emancipation.
Yeah. I think absolutely. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say Happy Juneteenth to everybody. I think it's a very good thing that this has been made a federal holiday to celebrate full emancipation. Right. It was 2 years before news or word got to Galveston, Texas, that the South had lost and slavery had been ended. And those last remaining slaves in the South were finally freed. So, I think it's a good thing that it's a federal holiday. I think we should celebrate more things like this, positive things, positive holidays, right? It feels like that's right in your wheelhouse with keeping it positive and sharing positivity, right?
Hell yeah. And in an inclusive holiday, positive holiday that every person should be free. Well, this is something that I can't argue with. And today we should keep on fighting for these kind of things, equality in all. Soapbox moment.
Right.
I hope to live in a world where we can keep fighting for equality of all things, whether it's age, race, gender, looks, color, job, pay, healthcare. I want to live in that world. So I will, try to be a person that can stand up when I don't think I am seeing that. So
100%. 100%. Absolutely agree. And I think the other thing too for me is that, like, yes, absolutely, equality is important and something we should always strive for. I think in addition to that, we should always strive for equity of opportunity, right? There's so many things, so many places in society today where some people are advantaged above other, and it's always going to be that way, right? Some people are always going to sort of have a little bit of a head start or have a little bit of an upper hand in certain situations. But I think we should always work towards leveling the playing field and giving everyone equitable opportunity to be successful. Ultimately, I kind of feel like that's what this whole American experiment is all about, right? Is what can you do when given the opportunity to do it? But people have to be given the opportunity to be successful, right? Like, no person. I heard an interesting thing. Like, this is kind of like this helps back it up. I heard an interview with Mark Cuban, right? Everybody knows who Mark Cuban is. Well-known billionaire, sold his majority share in the Mavericks, but still is the general manager of the team. And he in an interview, somebody asked him if he had to start all over, could he do it again? Could he? And he said, what, become a billionaire? And they said, yeah, become a billionaire. And he said, nope, absolutely not. He said, the only reason I'm a billionaire is luck. He said, I could become a millionaire again. I could definitely do that. If left to my own devices, if I had to start all over again from zero, I could make myself a millionaire again. He's like, but there is no such thing as a billionaire that got there by virtue of their own hard work. All of us, he said, all of us are here because of luck, because we got lucky, because we were in the right place at the right time and had the right opportunity and were able to take advantage of it. So I found that interesting. And it's kind of, ever since I heard him say that, it's made me think that, how much of an impact opportunity has on outcome. And I think that we can always try to do more to create equity of opportunity. So equality first, and then equity of opportunity, I think are both incredibly important. And I think celebrating Juneteenth as a federal holiday is an important step in that direction. And I think we could do more to celebrate more holidays and positive things from our history that reinforce the good values that we stand for.
Tom, well done, man. Well said. I got nothing but support for your words. It makes me think of us as we approach this topic in storytelling too. It makes me think of a line early in the Great Gatsby, where that has stuck with me for years and years and years. It's remember, son, we are not all afforded the same opportunities, and starts out why Gatsby's here and somebody else is here, and it is just this. At one point, somebody or something approached, the opportunity was created, and that's that. So let's get into storytelling here. So if we're not going to lead with clickbait, which we're not going to lead with clickbait. So, like I would say, so for instance, I send a lot of articles to newspapers, and so when I send these articles to newspapers about authors and things like that, I'll be like, local author accomplishes, like we have a friend, Christopher Worth, that shares positivity notes across the globe. Local author shares 20,000 positivity notes. Local author making a difference. When I am leading with 100% truth in this case, and then I'll write a story based on here, I like subject line, local author does this. And so I don't need to lie about what's going on. I say, here's what's going on. And it tends, when I lead with that kind of honesty, that I a lot of times get results.
Yeah. And I think, to me, like, you know how I feel about my metaphors, right? I like to use visual metaphors all day, every day. I would use them for everything if I could, probably. But some people get tired of them. What you were just talking about really made me think of a good way to sort of wrap my head around, and hopefully this helps other people, wrap my head around the difference between storytelling and using sort of a headline or a subject line to garner attention and then following through with value behind that versus just sharing a clickbait headline. And here's the metaphor or the analogy that I would use, right? We've all gotten a present before, whether it's a birthday present or a Christmas present or a holiday present or whatever, right? Hanukkah present, whatever. We've all gotten a present before. And to me, the storytelling, right, is a gift in a nicely wrapped box with a pretty bow on it. And when you open it up, you find a fantastic gift inside that you will treasure for a long time, right? And clickbait is a really nicely wrapped gift with a beautiful bow on it. And when you open it up, it's an empty box, right? And like that's the difference to me in what we're talking about here. And what you're talking, when you use a subject line like local author does XYZ, right? Like that's the bow, that's the wrapping paper on the outside of the box. That, somebody looks at that and says, that might be a nice present. Let me open that up, right? And they open it up, and sure enough, there is a nice present in there. There's a great article about somebody actually doing good in their community or in their world, right? And so that's a good gift, right? But if it says local author, blah, 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 like, and they open it up, they click on it, they open it up, and it's just that, like a picture with the same headline under it, right? Or something like that. Like they're going to look at that and go, well, what am I going to do with that? I already saw that. That was on the outside of the box. Now I'm inside the box and there's nothing else here. More of the same, not interested, right? So that's the way I kind of try to think about, like, that's one of the ways that I would suggest maybe thinking about it is when you're using a clickbait headline, when you're trying to use clickbait to garner attention, to get those views, get those likes, things like that, you're essentially giving somebody a beautifully wrapped box that's empty. And instead, if you want to give gifts, put something in the box that they will value, that they will find value in, that they will treasure, and maybe that they'll pass on to other people, right? Something that they would consider an heirloom, right? Maybe not to pass down in generations, but on to friends and family and other people that can benefit from it. So I don't know. It just popped into my head as you were talking, Dom, as a kind of a framework to help me wrap my head around it. And I wanted to share it in the hopes that it would help other people wrap their heads around it too.
All right, I like this idea. So we'll get Lois and Leslie. We're bringing you in on this. So if your content was, if your brand, if your content was a gift, what are you giving people? So meaning like, I give Lois gives hope, you know, or what would you? How simple can you break that down, Lois?
Well, give me 1 second and I'll speak on that.
Okay, 1 second, and she's going to speak on that. And Tom, in a little bit, I got a show and tell for you today, so it's going to be special. So we'll go to Leslie. If your content was a gift, what are you giving the people?
Well, if anybody knows Keep It Dirty, it's all about what just really living optimally, just physically, mentally, the skills and the tools and the tips that I've used, that I've learned over the years, that I've studied to help others. I mean, it is so gratifying for me when I see people flip the switch and do one simple change, and the hope and actually the mentoring and the tips that I give them, either in a blog or in a really cool package that we work together on, is really gratifying. So that's what I do. No empty boxes on my end.
I like that. Especially the way you wrapped it up. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think often people spend far too much time trying to build a large audience of moderately, if at all, engaged people, rather than trying to build a smaller audience of very engaged people. And I think what you're talking about there, Leslie, is exactly doing that, right? It's really focused on giving your community the best knowledge and information and frameworks you can, so that they can use them to better their lives. And like you said, no empty boxes for you. And I love that idea that that you are always focused on delivering value. I think everybody here, anybody who knows me, knows how I feel about leading with value. So I appreciate and applaud anyone and everyone that does that for their community. So well done. Lois, are you what say you? Are you ready to speak on it?
I'm ready. And actually, if you wouldn't mind, what I'd like to do is read something out of this book I've been reading every day called The Book of Awakening. And it kind of speaks to what I think that our house kind of provides here on Clubhouse. If you don't mind, it will just take me a second to read this. And it's called, for June 19th today, it's called A Wider Horizon. And it says, the eyes experience less stress when they can look upon a wider horizon. That's a quote by R.D. Chin. And that's what I think we give people, is like a wider horizon. And it goes on to say, whether it be physics or architecture or Eastern forms of meditation, or Western forms of prayer, every field of inquiry affirms the fact that the wider our view, the less isolated we are. The more connected we stay to everything larger than us, the less turbulent our time on earth. This is why it helps to share our journey with others, because in so doing, we become a chorus of voices, and the stress of going solo lessens once we discover that we are not alone. As light, when confined, turns to heat, the stuff of our lives, when confined, ignites brush fires out of our isolation. I felt the difference dramatically when joining a wellness group during my cancer experience. Alone, I was feeling the heat of dying. But once voicing my pain in a circle of others on the same path, my heart relaxed back into the light of living. So when you see someone stumbling forward with a stone in their heart, simply go near them and listen. When the pains of feeling sharp, open up your attention and give it freely, and the connections will even out the sharpness. When things feel heavy, reach out to whomever is near and distribute the weight. And that's what I think what Ever Mindful is all about.
Thanks for that,
Hey,
Lois. Yeah, I think
yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think one of the things that you said early on there that I kind of focused on was the idea of like sort of widening your view. And it, to me, like, I think one of the things that we often get caught up in is, people tend to be a little bit sort of narrow-minded about views and kind of like less willing and more rigid in their willingness to listen to other people, to accept their points of view, to understand, where they're coming from and how their experiences in life have informed the way they see the world. And so I think we can always, try to keep in mind. I know I try to do it. I'm not always successful, right? Just like any of us, right? But I always try to keep an open mind and really listen to other people's perspectives and understand them and appreciate them. We may disagree, but at least I try to understand their perspective. So I think that's an important thing that we could do more of, right? Or we could always, something that we should always try to do. So thanks for sharing that, Lois. What do you think, Dom?
I'm going to read one of these comments down at the bottom here because it's, as we were talking about, we started talking about storytelling rather than leading with clickbait. What would your present be? What would your gift be? So that's where Lois was going there. So here's Stephanie wrote, her gift would be peace of mind. My folks would know they can rely and depend on me with mutual trust. So well said. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so what do I think, Tom? I think it's almost time for show and tell. What do you think?
Yeah, let's go for it. What do you got? You said you had something special coming for me this week. So what do you got?
I'm gonna move to the side here and get ready. But this show and tell is because Tom helped me with something about a year ago. I was swimming in a lake, and something I was doing, Tom said, was goofy. So I went and changed my perspective on things, and I finally found something that's helpful. So I'm going to move over here for a second and get you ready. So today I come to you with my goggles on because I was swimming in a lake. I joined a somewhat swim team a couple years ago, and I'm not a great swimmer. So the goal was we'd like exercise and do like CrossFit on the beach. And then by the end of the season, we would swim a little bit. And then the goal was to swim a mile at the end of the season, which we did. But I used to swim with sunglasses on. So my eyes were always burning. I couldn't see anything. And Tom said it was goofy for me to swim with sunglasses on. So I went out and got myself, I think I bought a couple over the years, but I finally got myself a pair of goggles that attached to my face, that water's not getting in, and now I can swim and get some more laps in. And Tom even suggested, I learned from him, he suggested how I breathe. So now I'm looking back this way when I breathe, and I'm not choking and swallowing as much water. So props to Tom. So today my show and tell is these goggles. What do you think, Tom?
I mean, I like it. I when it comes to swimming distance, goggles are crazy important, right? So yeah, I mean, I did a swim this morning before hopping on here with you. I did about 1,600 yards this morning before getting on, and yeah, I mean, I couldn't do it without goggles, right? I mean, it just, yeah, it would drive me nuts. It would be virtually impossible to do it well. So good job, good for you. Get the goggles. I'm glad that they're working out for you. I actually joined a local swim club here close to me. I've been swimming by myself for the last few years, right? Primarily out in open water in a lake nearby my house, and I want to improve my swim times. And one of the things that I realized is, which is going to seem obvious, but it's one of those things that, like, it took me a couple of minutes to get there, but I wanted to improve my swim times. And one of the things that I realized was I'm never going to really improve my swim times without getting feedback, and nobody can give me feedback if I'm out swimming in the middle of a lake by myself. So there's a local swim club. The prices were very, very, reasonable. And I would encourage anybody that wants to improve their swimming, look up your local masters swimming club. They're all over the country. And I think it's USA Swimming or something like that is the parent organization. But if you just Google search Masters Swim Club, you'll be able to find a swim club near you, and you'll be able to join up and go and work on your swim techniques and work on your skills and actually improve them and put your goggles to good use. So thanks for sharing that, Dom, and I'm glad the advice helped.
I'm not drowning, and my eyes aren't as red as they were, and I'm swallowing less bacteria now, all because of Tom. So I'm glad Carrie and John stopped by today. So Carrie, John, you're going to love the subject we were talking about. Clickbait, whether it's in marketing, whether it's on social, whether it's people DMing you and trying to meet with you and saying they want to learn about your business. I used to sell Yellow Page ads, and one of the trainings in the Yellow Page ads was we would leave messages that said, I just want to, hey, excuse me, Mr. Business Owner, I just wanted to learn about your business. I wanted to talk to you about your business. Such horse shit. And that was what they were training. Of course, they were pissed off down the road. So, Carrie, if you want to speak on the subject, you're up next. What do you think?
I think if I need to meet someone and find someone, I'll say whatever I need to say, and I usually find an opening. But fun fact about me: I was on the diving team for a brief time. It happened just like
how high did you jump? Me and my wife were down in Fort Lauderdale, and we were near I think it's the diving museum or something like that. And we saw these people, they were jumping like it looked like they were 100 feet up in the air. So maybe farther. How far were you diving?
No, not that far because I'm afraid of heights, but
Okay.
I just had to get out of my house and sneak into a country club that my friends were at, and I had to join some kind of team. So I did swimming and diving for that summer, and I have pictures to prove it. I know people don't believe it because I don't think I'm going to go swimming anytime soon now. But yeah,
it's perfect. So. It's perfect swimming weather. It's 90 degrees out. Come on. Hey, okay, Carrie. So back to the subject. So and this isn't a bad thing at all, but you're saying to get in the door because what you have later on is so valuable, you do what you got to do to get in the door. Is that the suggestion?
Yeah, I think everyone deserves a seat at the table, and if you're passionate and you want to be there and you have something of value, then you're gonna go through the kitchen door and do whatever to find that person. And I've done that my whole life, and I think you can do it. So, and I champion the person that goes around the obstacle to find that person. So that's what I have to say about that.
All right, bring it on. Okay, so John J, can there be value to clickbait, or is it just like, is that just some fancy term, or is it like, Carrie, hey, you're just trying to get in the door? So what's your thoughts on it? Should we use it? Can you use it? Is it completely bad? Is it silly? What do you got for us, man? And I'm glad you stopped for this subject.
I'm glad I'm here too. I'm usually not available this time of day lately, but it depends on what we use. The term, the phrase clickbait. So we use it, the connotation most people use it as is like, let's just say, is this you in this video? How many people seen that message in comments in Facebook? And it's usually a virus, a hack virus to get access to your account and lock you out and use your ad programming. So it's a spam technique. That's definitely clickbait. When I'm going to get your attention, I'm not going to waste pardon my French, I'm not going to waste your fucking time. I'm going to get right to the point of why you need to check this out. And you have a choice. I'm going to check it out or I'm not. And the content is always going to deliver along the lines of what is in a statement. It'll be in social media, the title of my podcast, the first line of the podcast, the show notes, the show structure, the whole thing is definitely designed for the consumer. I want to get their attention. As a matter of fact, I use the phrase, I'm going to punch them in the mouth and get their attention. Because there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of noise. But I'm not going to say things that that's not about, because there is a drawback. I just sent a nasty email to someone who sent me a chain letter that's a follow-up from a PR person. And I got, Dominic, I know you do some of this, so my apologies ahead of time. And I said, clearly, this was a second email. Hey, how about this? You never responded. And I replied back, how about you stop wasting my time? You send a blanket template letter that's got nothing to do with me. You've not expressed what it's going to do for me or how it's going to help me. It's all about how it's going to help you. That is the exact opposite of clickbait. You're going to get a bad response from me. So the one thing we have in life that we can't replace is time. We can't create more of it. And if we waste people's time, it's a definite shot, is a definite negative thing. So that's why I don't use clickbait in a term where it's not, I don't put things in the content to get people's attention and don't deliver it, because there's a negative blowback with that. But I'm certainly going to use as impactful terminology and search terminology possible to get their attention immediately.
Yeah, and I think you really draw a good distinction there, John, that I want to highlight. To my mind, when we talk about clickbait, we talk about exactly what you were kind of saying you don't do, John, right? Which is where you use that sort of, the catchy, keyword-driven headline, that impactful headline, that punch in the face headline, and then don't follow it up with value afterwards. You don't deliver on the value behind it, right? To me, that is clickbait. When you punch them in the face, or hit them over the head with the headline, and don't deliver the value, that's clickbait. But if you deliver the value, it's not clickbait, right? And you guys weren't in the room before. We were talking about, I kind of used a metaphor of a gift, right? And if you're giving a gift, like, clickbait is a nicely wrapped package, and when you unwrap it, you find that it's just an empty box, right? And so it's great. Like, you can put nice wrapping on a gift, but when the person opens the box, like when the consumer opens the box, there has to be something in the box, right? There has to be a gift in the box. There has to be value there. And I think a lot of people get caught up on getting like the kind of the view numbers or the likes, right, by using, by putting nice wrapping paper on what is essentially an empty box, because they don't deliver on the value. They don't follow it up with value. So I just wanted to highlight, I think that was a really good distinction you made there, John. And I definitely agree with you that if you're gonna be provocative, if you're gonna smack them in the face, if you're gonna use, if you're gonna really be direct with your captioning and your headlines and things like that, like, you got to deliver. Just like you said, you have to deliver. And I think, far too often people don't deliver, and that's the sort of problem. But if you do deliver, then I think, more power to you.
Right on, man. I'm going to give you a definition. So clickbait, it says clickbait typically refers to the practice of writing sensationalized or misleading headlines in order to attract clicks on a piece. So exactly, we're saying everybody in this room pretty much goes all in with, like, hey, if you're getting something from me, it's motivation, and that's what you're going to read, or see. It's going to be inspiring. If you're getting something from John, it is exactly what the title says it is. It's an inspiration story about somebody in blue. It's a story about some weird shit that somebody did out there, right, against the blue, and we're like, what the hell is this idiot doing, right, John? And then we read the story, and you delivered on the story. I mean, well done. Okay, not the smartest guys in the room. We're cruising around. So we talked about. So I'm going to give Carrie and John a chance, and then you can do the wrap up, Tom. But I'm going to give them one more chance of just. So we were talking about. Well, if we're leading with storytelling, what is the package? What is the gift that you would be giving? So what's in you? So Carrie, hey, I have a podcast where I do this, and this, and I do photography and make people look and feel special. I make them look and feel their best. I don't know what that answer is, but if you two want to take a spin at what's actually in the box, go on. Carrie, you're first.
Well, I think like, to tell a story, you have to punch him in the mouth, like John says, which I think we should like frame in gold somewhere. But it's true. You have to kind of shock the in a good way, and always, if you can get out of the gate and make them laugh, then you're gonna laugh or cry. Those are the two things. Most people say it's easier to make people cry than laugh, but I think it's easier to make people laugh. But disarm them and speak from the heart. And I learned that from John as well. So that's my tips.
There you go. She's showing up, disarming, laughter, treating people with kindness. Go on, John. So you're delivering your brand. What are they getting from you, my friend?
Well, Dominick, by the way, I happen to know, but he spent some time in the combat arts and the martial arts, and the whole thinking is, when you get punched in the mouth, and if you never been punched in the mouth, that's great. But when you get punched in the mouth, it's kind of hard to focus on anything else. Right there, it's for real, and it may not incapacitate you, but it's got your full undivided attention. That's what I'm going for. So when I do, for example, this is not a good one. The episode of the podcast I released for today, it's where I appeared on someone else's show. So it's a little bit different. But even in there, here's the title I use because it's posted on social media. Police in Baltimore, 4 gunfights impact the TV news. It's a special episode. I try to use terms that are getting searched. I try to use terms that have some impact. And that's exactly, it's my story of what I went through as a police officer in Baltimore to some degree or another. Yeah, there were 4 gunfights and 2 other close calls, and many other things. However, if I led with impact the TV news on policing, kind of really, it sounds like everybody else's content. It doesn't really get my attention. So what I did in the past episode, it was, let me see if I can scroll down and find it right now. It was about okay, I'll use another one for example. He was an NYPD cop who became a homicide detective, went to ATF. He got lung cancer from the World Trade Center after 9/11. Then when he recovered, he was on scene in the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting. That's impact. That's exactly what I go for. That's what that episode's about. So that helps me stand out from the crowd. If I start with, today's guest is Peter Forcelli, and he tells the story about, by that point, people are asleep. They've checked out already. So that's why I lead the way I do. Because quite honestly, otherwise I'd just be flapping my lips and not getting any listeners. And I don't grow that way. So if I want to grow, I got to get people's attention.
There you go, brother. And you're doing a good job with it. And I, like Carrie thanked you, and I want to thank you as well. You do a good job sharing what you've learned with other people. And so we appreciate that. You're helping. We talked about rising tides lift all boats, and so you're doing that as well. So thank you, John. Appreciate it. All right, Tom, not the smartest guys in the room. It's that time of day where you tie it all up with a nice little bow and leave us with skipping our step. So go on, my friend.
All right, no pressure. I'll do my best. So kind of the place where this conversation really got started between Dom and I before today's episode of Not the Smartest Guys, the place where this got started was something that I had been thinking about, and I made a post about it on Monday, and it's this idea that often we get caught up in data, right? Statistics and the data around things rather than focusing on the story and storytelling and the value, right, behind what we're actually doing, what we're sharing, the gifts that we're giving to our community, whether that be knowledge or information or entertainment, whatever the case may be. Gifts come in a lot of shapes and sizes, right? But we often get caught up in the data. We often get caught up in the statistics. And that's what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode when we were talking about likes, right, and views on social media posts. And so I just want to leave everybody with this. Just remember that when it comes to creating content, when it comes to building a community, right, that's a decision that you're asking your audience to make. You're asking your audience to become actively involved in the work that you're doing, to become actively engaged with you and your brand and your business as a member of the community. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, we all make decisions based on emotion first. We rationalize them after the fact with data, right? And data can be good, right? Data can shape our decision making. I'm not saying it's not worthwhile, but we make decisions emotionally first, right? And so all I would say is, if you're asking people to make a decision, give them something that delivers emotional impact for them. Nobody in here, nobody listening, nobody watching this could claim that they are more likely to laugh out loud, or laugh until it hurts, or cry based on statistics than they are based on storytelling, right? So all I would say as we wrap it up today is just remember to give people what they're actually after, and that's an emotional relationship, emotional touch points that they can share with you, and to use emotion to help build a community, I think is incredibly important. So just bear that in mind as you wrap up those gifts that you deliver to your community through your storytelling and through the content that you provide for them. Make sure that you are making them laugh until it hurts, or making them cry, or just making them feel. I think that's the most important thing. So that's all I'll say about it for today. I think that's where I'll leave it. Appreciate all of you guys being here with us. As always, you're incredibly valuable to us, to both Dom and I. We love you guys. We appreciate you. You are the reason that we show up every Wednesday to do this. So thank you for being a part of this community. And until next Wednesday at 9:30 a.m., until the next episode of Not the Smartest Guys in the Room, we hope you have a great rest of your week. Happy Juneteenth. We'll see you guys soon. We love you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye now.